And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I am not ready for this. Like, it's all happened way too fast and I'm not ready for this. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new, my name is Allie. Here on the channel, I do lifestyle, cleaning and organization, and mommy videos. I have a 2-year-old little girl named Emmy. Her full name is Emerson, but we call her Emmy. And then my husband and I just had our first little boy. He's our second child. We had him about a week ago, and his name is Oakley. He's just kind of hanging out and chilling. This video is going to be all about Oakley here. It's going to be our labor and delivery story. I did do a birth vlog, and that is up on the channel, so if you missed that, go back and watch that video first and then come back to watch this video. In that birth vlog, I took you through our day and you just kind of were able to live it with us. And then I also shared this sweet moment when Oakley was born. You hear his first cries, you hear me sobbing. My mom and Andrew were just really excited. So it's a sweet, sweet video. Totally recommend you go see that and get your tissues. But in that video, I wasn't able to give you all of the details of that day, and so that's what I'm hoping to do in this video right now. So on October 17th, I was 40 weeks and 3 days, and I had a scheduled induction. The OB office that I go to here in Charleston only lets you go 41 weeks before they induce, just to reduce any risks and complications from occurring. And that was honestly fine with me. When the doctor had checked me before we scheduled the induction, I was pretty much ready to go into labor at any moment. I think I was at a 3. I was dilated to a 3 and 50% effaced. And so the doctor was like, you just really need Pitocin and for me to break your water, and this baby's gonna come fast. Which was totally different from my experience with Emmy. I labored for 16 hours and then pushed for a very, very, very long time. It was not the most pleasant experience. So when she said that this labor could go fast, I was like, okay, sure. So on October 17th, I left Emmy with my mom, who had come into town to help us out after the baby was born, to help us with Emmy and help with the baby and things like that. So I left Emerson with my mom. She was still asleep. And then the plan was to have Andrew's mom come in and relieve my mom of the babysitting duties so that my mom could be at the hospital with us for the delivery. So that was the plan. Oh my goodness. So that was the plan. We left for the hospital. Yeah, we left for the hospital a little bit on the late side and got there. We were supposed to get there at 7. We got there a little bit late, but then we got checked in, got me changed into my hospital gown, in the bed, hooked up to the IVs. They started, I was GBS positive, so they started the antibiotics for that, just to have them in my system in plenty of time before the baby was born. And then they also started me on Pitocin right away. So I think by the time I was hooked up to everything, it was 8 o'clock in the morning when they started Pitocin. And it was just Andrew and I at the hospital at this point. Contractions started right away with the Pitocin, but they were not painful contractions. They were just a lot more intense than the contractions, like the Braxton Hicks practice contractions I had been having. So it really wasn't bad at all to begin with. They started me on a low dose of Pitocin, and every half hour or so the nurse would come in and increase the dose of Pitocin. The 2 worst things that I was experiencing at that point were every time I'd have a contraction, I would feel like I had to pee right then and there, even though I really didn't have to. It felt that way. And the other thing was I was starving. I did have a piece of toast and a couple sips of coffee before I went in to the hospital. Sometimes they say not to eat anything before you go in. And that's what it said on the piece of paper, like the instructions on what to do before you arrive at the hospital. They said do not eat anything, but my doctor had given me permission to have a few bites of something just to have a little energy and a little something on my stomach to get me through the day. So I chose to have a piece of toast, but that wore off rather quickly and I was pretty much starving. And all they give you at the hospital was ice chips. So I was like chowing down on ice chips. I had Jell-O for lunch. Better than nothing, but definitely still not satisfying. To kill the time, I just scrolled through my phone and looked at all the messages on Instagram, because we as a YouTube family and those who follow me on Instagram, we've been going through this pregnancy journey together for the entire pregnancy. So for 9 months, we've been waiting on this baby to get here, and the day had finally come. So many of you guys were sending me messages, and I was just going through them and reading them and responding to as many as I could. And that's what I did to pass the time. I laid in bed for the majority of the morning. I did get off the bed and got on a birthing ball just to kind of like switch things up, because the plan was to have an epidural, and I knew that once I had that epidural that I would have to be laying in bed the rest of the time until I had the baby. So I wanted to kind of get off the bed and switch things up a little bit. So I asked for a birthing ball. I got on the birthing ball. I wasn't on the birthing ball very long when the doctor came in and said, okay, it's time to break your water. At this point, it was 11 o'clock in the morning, and we had been there since like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We'd been there 4 hours, and I'd been on Pitocin for 3. And so she came in, said, we're gonna break your water. So I got off the birthing ball, got into the bed. She checked me. I was at a 4 dilated. And honestly, I was a little bit nervous about having my water broken, and I voiced this to her. When I had Emmy, the doctor was kind of aggressive, came in with that crochet hook, snapped my water, and the sensation was not pleasant, and then outgushed my water. None of it was a pleasant experience, and I was kind of nervous about it. So I voiced that to her, and she said, okay, we'll be gentle. So she went in and broke my water, and then left her hand there and kind of just like let the water slowly drain out. And honestly, that was a much better experience. I did get like a lot of it up my back, which was kind of gross, but hey, it is what it is. Birth is messy. The doctor was super calm and collected through this entire process, but I could tell that there was a little bit of urgency after she broke my water and the things that she said. So apparently when she broke my water, I was at a 4, but when she broke my water, my cervix opened up, and I was a lot farther along than I was before she broke my water. And so she said, I wish that I had waited to break your water until we had your epidural lined up, because you're about to be very uncomfortable here very soon, and things are gonna start moving quickly. So they got another bag of fluids in me, because I couldn't get my epidural until I had had an entire bag of fluids. So they had that going. She left me, and then within a matter of minutes, it wasn't very long, in walks the guy to do the epidural. He was quite the character, honestly. I couldn't tell if he was joking half the time in the things he said, or if he was serious. It was kind of an awkward experience. But he had me sit on the edge of the bed, and I had had an epidural with Emmy, but I was in and out of consciousness kind of with Emerson because of some medication they had given me that I did not react well to. So I don't remember getting the epidural with Emmy. I just, I just had it done. So this was kind of like my first experience of being fully conscious and having my epidural, and I was very nervous about it. I didn't really know what to expect. So they let Andrew stay in the room, thankfully, and he held me and just talked to me as they did it. And I cried like a baby through the entire thing. The entire time I cried, but it honestly was not bad. There was a little bit of pain, but not a whole lot. It was mostly just like a weird pressure feeling in your spine, which is not a place that you're used to feeling that kind of sensation and pressure. So it was just overall like more uncomfortable and weird than it was painful. For any of you who have never had an epidural and are wondering, that's the best way I can describe it. It took a while for the epidural to fully start working. So I just laid there in bed until it did its thing. My mom got to the hospital around between 12:45 and 1 o'clock. And so we were all in there just kind of chilling and talking, and I had the peanut ball in between my legs, so I was laying on my side, and all of a sudden I was like, you know how they say when you feel like you need to push, then you need to start pushing? And I was like, I kind of feel like I need to push. And at that same time, the baby's heart rate, which had been being monitored, so it was constantly like thumping in the background, super dropped, like really low. And we all kind of just looked at each other like, well, that's weird. And I didn't really think anything of it. I just kind of went along with it. But then in walks the doctor and the nurse. And again, I didn't really think anything of the fact that they came in, but my mom had put the two together, and she was like, well, the baby's heart rate is dropping, and in walks the doctor. So I think my mom got really nervous. So in walks the doctor and the nurse, and the doctor says, I think that you are at a 10 and are ready to start pushing. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, I am not ready for this. Like, it's all happened way too fast, and I'm not ready for this. But sure enough, she checked me, and I was at a 10, and I was ready to push. So they're starting to get the room all ready. She goes out to get dressed in her stuff, or I don't know what she did, but she left the room and came back in. They were setting up the room. I'm still laying on my side facing away from like all of the action, and I remember feeling the most pressure down there, and I was like, this baby's just gonna fall out. Every time I had a contraction, it felt like he was going to fall out. So I was thinking, like, focusing on that and thinking, please don't fall out, please don't fall out, because I'm not ready. I need the doctor to be there to catch the baby. So they got everything set up, and it was time to push. And so here we are pushing. Every time a contraction came, I would push, and I had Andrew on one side, the nurse on the other. It was painful. So I pushed one time, and I could start to see his head. Like, I could see it, and I don't know if I just like got scared or what, but I gave up in the middle of that push. And so my contraction ended, and his head was just halfway chilling out. Like, I could see his hair, I could see half his head, and I didn't have a contraction to help me like finish pushing him out. So we just had to sit there and rest, and I was like freaking out a little bit because it hurt. First of all, hurt really bad, and like there's just this baby chilling there. But up came another contraction, and I pushed him out. I think it took 3 contractions, so I don't know how many times I pushed within those 3 contractions, but there were 3 contractions, and the doctor said, okay, stop pushing, and she kind of like gingerly pulled him out. And it was the sweetest thing ever. I was sobbing through the entire thing, both from fear, from pain, and just like pure excitement and joy. And they put him on my chest right away. Andrew got to cut the cord. It was just the perfect experience. I got to cuddle him for like a really long time. They let me do skin to skin for like an hour, and they just kind of left us. Like after I had him, after they put him on my chest, they got a diaper on him, they just let me hold him on my chest for a good hour and just like soak in the baby newborn snuggles and love on him. And that is not what I got to do with Emmy. They whisked Emmy away, cleaned her up, all kinds of stuff. I think she had maybe had some complications with the cord wrapped around her neck, is what Andrew was telling me. But this was a totally different experience. I did tear, so the doctor had to give me a few stitches. With Emmy, I tore down. This time I tore up. Not fun, not the best place to tear. So I do have some stitches still that I am trying to recover from. I couldn't believe how fast it had happened. I really expected to be in the hospital for a long time, laboring for a long time, and I just expected it to be way more painful. But between her breaking my water and getting the epidural, I had 2 or 3 really painful contractions, and that was the only pain that I felt other than pushing him out. That was the only pain I felt delivering this baby. And in my opinion, I mean, everybody's different, and I respect everybody else's decision. If you want to get an epidural, if you want to do it unmedicated, if you want to have a C-section, like, you do you. All births are beautiful and miraculous in their own way. Just the whole process is beautiful. But I got an epidural because that is what I wanted to do, and it was an awesome experience, and I would do it again and again and again, and it doesn't make my birthing experience any less than having an unmedicated one, just because I didn't feel any pain. Honestly, that's the way I wanted to have it, and it was perfect for me, and it was a very, very good experience in my opinion. But it did happen really fast. I went from Pitocin at 8 o'clock in the morning to having him at 2:01 in the afternoon. It was not a very long time, and that was seriously wonderful because I had so much energy after I had him. I hadn't been pushing for hours, and I hadn't been laboring with contractions for hours. I hadn't gone through the middle of the night and lost sleep. I had this baby and it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and so I had the rest of the afternoon to enjoy him and love on him and get to know him, and I had a lot of energy. I also was not nearly in as much pain as I had been with Emmy, maybe because of the places that I tore. I don't know what it was, but I wasn't really sore right afterwards. I mean, I was ginger. Your stomach always feels really weird because your guts have gone from being way up around your lungs to like suddenly having dropped back to where they're supposed to be. So that's always kind of a weird adjustment to have to feel that stuff for the next day or so. But honestly, it was the best experience that I could have ever had, and it's kind of dangerous because now I want like 10 more babies. If I could have a birth like that every single time, like, I would have 10 more babies. Recovery is going, it's just been easy. I got back on my feet pretty quickly, probably more quickly than I should have, because some days I feel it and I'm like, oh, I've done too much today. But it's just nice to be able to kind of bounce back really quickly and live your real life quicker. I forgot to share with you guys how much he weighed and how long he was, but he was 8 pounds 7 ounces, so I'm really glad that I didn't have to go to 42 weeks because he would have been a big baby. And he was 21 inches long. He did have a little bit of issues with his bilirubin levels being high, so he was a bit jaundiced. We did get to go home early, which was really nice. I guess we just checked out and were able to go home a day early. So, but the only thing was that I had to go back to the pediatrician's the next day just to have his bilirubin levels checked again. So they said as long as we go to the pediatrician the next day, we were able to go home a day early. So we went to the pediatrician the next day, and his levels had gone up a little bit more. So then they had me come back 2 days later, and his bilirubin levels were more normal then. So we were all good with that. I was very grateful. I didn't want to have to take him back to the hospital and put him under the Billy lights, but we were all good there, thankfully. So here we are, a week later, loving life, loving this baby. I feel like a much more confident mom the second time around. There's not all this guessing at pretty much everything like you do with the firstborn. I've learned it all, figured it all out, and definitely helps having an easier baby the second time around. But I definitely am a much more confident mom and am able to just enjoy him a little bit more. So that is our labor and delivery story. I'm really hoping that I didn't forget any of the details. If you guys have any questions at all, I am an open book. I have been open about this whole pregnancy, and then, I mean, you can't get more open than sharing your birth in a vlog. So if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments and I will try and answer them for you. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you guys so much for following us along. Those of you who have followed us along in this pregnancy journey, and then were just so supportive and excited with us when we had him. And I'm just so excited that I can finally share him with you guys. He's the sweetest little thing. He's so precious. But thank you guys for watching this video. I love you guys so much. Make sure you are subscribed if you haven't already to keep up with our family and just watch as we try and adjust to life with now a toddler and a newborn. It's definitely going to be a little crazy, I think, but yeah, I would love to have you guys follow along with us. So make sure you're subscribed. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.